there will be no real non-controlled currency in the world.
We're coming for you, banks.
And this is exactly what these Bitcoin Cash people are building.
Shout out to the Dragon Riders and the House of the Dragon.
Because it's a completely different situation than it was 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, that's how frogs get boiled. And they added a bunch of new opcodes and they're doing a bunch of things over there.
It will be the most hated rally ever because a lot of people from some propaganda hate Bitcoin Cash.
Hello and welcome back to the Bitcoin Cash podcast, following Bitcoin Cash on its rise to global reserve currency. This is the podcast special episode number 173, live from the Isle of Man with guest host Gareth. Today is Saturday, the 7th of February, 2026. I'm your host, Jeremy. Gareth?
Hello, and I'm the co-host just for today. Just for today's special, coming live from the Isle of Man. So, Jeremy, before we go any further, I think maybe you should explain to the regular viewers what's going on, because I won the prize. Do you want to tell them what happened? How I'm here?
Yes. So when we were at BLISS last year, BLISS 2025, we had a raffle during which we gave away decks of cards and some merchandise. Some people actually got BCH branded poker kit, which I heard was very popular later. But the grand prize was to join an episode of the podcast and actually host it. So full ability to customize what was the content, how we did the stream, everything like that. And Gareth won, actually. So this episode has been co-produced by Gareth. It's all under his creative direction, and he will be taking it from here. Take it away, Gareth.
Thank you. But before we go any further, none of this would be possible without Jet producing, of course. So, Jet, thanks for all the prep work and for putting up with my many pivots. There's been loads of ideas I had as to what to do with this, on what this episode was going to be. So now kind of apologies to the regular listeners that we'll be missing some of the regular features. But I'm hoping this targeted more for people who are new to Bitcoin Cash and crypto may still be of interest to you. So a warm welcome to anyone here, anyone listening from the Isle of Man. I've been putting it about a bit and seeing who we've got. And this episode is primarily for you, introducing you to what Bitcoin Cash is all about and to what peer-to-peer digital cash can do for you. And straight off the bat, we're going to start by going live on a cash drop. So we'll tell you more about it in a moment. But for the tech savvy on the island who've already figured it out, and have your Purely Peer app installed and are waiting to go find the drops. So, Jeremy, do you want to do the countdown for us?
Let's go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Cash drop.
Create. Proceed. There we go.
Well, live.
And that looks like it should be live now. So if you go to your Purely Peer, you will... and you're on the island, there might be one just outside your front doorstep. So we'll be popping in every now and again all the way through. But before that, Jeremy, for those who have no idea what we're talking about with the Purely Peer, I guess now would be a good idea to explain what it is.
Yes, so Purely Peer is an app developed by Paytaca, who are one of the great stalwarts of the BCH ecosystem. They also make a wallet app and merchant tooling and a lot of other stuff. And they're founded and focused in the Philippines, but they've made this app Purely Peer, which is a geocaching game. So people are familiar with Pokemon Go, was a big craze several years ago, where you can explore around in the real world, and using your app, you can come across treasures and quests and things like that, right? So Purely Peer is a Bitcoin Cash focused version of the same concept. So it allows people to explore the real world and have fun as just an exploratory game, get outside, get some exercise, but also pick up these drops of BCH so you can actually earn real money just by running around playing this game. Now, that provides a secondary function, which is that it also helps merchants who are accepting Bitcoin Cash, because either the merchants who are in the same area or other entities in the Bitcoin Cash space, for instance, the BCH podcast, who want to advertise, can fund these drops in a locality where they want to promote adoption. So it also serves as a vehicle to distribute BCH to new people and generate interest in an area, because people who will come to find those cash drops then, of course, will think, where can I spend this? And of course, the local merchants that have funded the drops will then be the first ones that they'll go to check it out. So it helps to create community connections at the same time. So that's the brief summary, I guess, of Purely Peer.
Yep. And there are, over the island, all in accessible places, 65 drops of 0.015 BCH, which is around £5-6 pounds. So it's something. But so the drops are live. Let's leave that running. Before we dive in, let me give you a quick overview of what we're covering today. So I'm going to start by sharing the story of how I got interested in all this, long before Bitcoin even existed, and why I think it matters. So has become this what it was created for, and why Bitcoin Cash is different. We'll cover the basics of self-custody, wallets, not accounts, and what you need to know to keep your BCH safe. Then we've got pre-recorded interviews with two people behind two successful BCH communities, one in the Philippines and one in Australia. We'll check in on the cash drop occasionally, as I said. We'll hear from Jeremy and Jet, and we'll finish up with how you can get involved here on the Isle of Man. Sound good? Let's go. So Jeremy, you start every show talking about Bitcoin Cash becoming a global reserve currency. And I want to unpack that a bit, because I think about it a bit differently. So my story that brought me to Bitcoin started long before Bitcoin. As a band member, as a band, we traveled, and we found ourselves in 1996 in the Khartoum International Music Festival, Khartoum, Sudan, the capital of Sudan. And a phenomenal experience. People were special, lots that were good. And one of the things was the British Council that had paid us for us to go. And they'd given us a Land Rover and a driver to take us to our gigs, but also to the market, to sightseeing, to see where the Blue and the Red Nile meet. And we got to know our driver. And one day, the driver says to me, I hope I get paid before the army this month, because if I get paid before the army, I can keep my son and my daughter in school. But if the army gets paid before me, the school fees will double, so I will have to take my daughter out of school for a month. And I was like, what? How does that work? And he said, well, because the government of Sudan doesn't have money to pay the army, it just prints it. And I knew already that this was a crazy hyperinflationary country, because I was paying a bundle like this for a bag of peanuts from someone in the street. But this is what I understood then was the cause of this. He said, because there's twice as much money chasing the same amount of goods, then the price of everything doubles. So in effect, and this is what I was figuring out, in effect, they're stealing half the money that everybody has. And what they were using that money for was just beyond comprehension for me. As in my 20s, I couldn't even think of the horrors that were going on in the south of the country, what is now South Sudan. And you know, the Darfur, even people who don't follow the news closely in the last 20 years, you'll know about those horrors, the refugee camps, and that all, as at that age, was just too much for me. But on the plane on the way home, my brain started ticking about this inflation stuff. I could think about that without it hurting too much. And what I wondered, the question I asked myself was whether it would be possible one day to have a currency that wasn't controlled by governments and banks, and that they couldn't abuse the issuance of, that they couldn't steal from the population in that way. And that was then whirring in my brain. A few years later, around 2000, I came across public key cryptography for encrypting emails. That was exciting, the encryption side. But then the signing side interested me. That cryptography is also about signing things. And well, what if you could sign, you could create unique tokens? Well, would this be part of the answer for the people of Sudan and in similar places? Because by then I'd come across people in Argentina and various places. So I knew it wasn't just a problem for one place, that this is a common thing that happens. It wasn't in my experience in Europe. And I know the US and Australia, as Noel says, it's not an issue there, at least not to that extent. But where I'm not a technician, and it wasn't long before I realized that if Hollywood and the music industry can't stop people from copying films and songs, they're not going to be able to. No, we're not at a stage where we can stop people from copying coins. There needs to be something that wasn't there. And it turns out later that people had got as far as I had got. People a lot smarter than me had gotten as far as I'd got in the 80s, but they had got stuck at what I later learned was called the double spend problem. How do you stop someone from spending the same coin twice? So when I happened to be late at night at work in 2012, browsing around the internet, and this thing, Bitcoin, turned up, I got goosebumps because I realized straight away that I knew what the use case was straight away. I recognized someone has solved this problem. It's here. And yeah, I just got involved straight away because it was so exciting to me. So that was my moment with Bitcoin. I recognized it for what it was, and I thought I got to get involved. So we'll talk about no, sorry, I've done it already. I went backwards. So my thinking was that to get it into as many hands as possible, not for this one currency to take over all other currencies, but if enough of a population of a country have some and can use this currency, then it allows the population to hold the governments and central banks to account. Because if these governments don't issue their money responsibly, if they act in a way that steals the money from their population, then the people have another option. So for me, this is where the reserve option comes in, as in not reserve currency that central banks hold in their banks. That's not what's of interest to me. What's interested me is that it is in so many hands, in the ordinary people, that we can hold central banks and governments where it's required. If they're behaving responsibly, it's not an issue. But if they're not, we have the means to hold them to account. So that's what it was exciting. That was what was exciting to me. And that brings us back to the question of how to get it into the hands of as many people as possible. And the answer, as far as I'm concerned, is to be using it as money. That people want to spend it and people want to earn Bitcoin Cash. So the focus of Satoshi, the pseudonymous person who came up with Bitcoin, was on its use as money on the internet to allow payments between people without having to depend on cards and banks. And for that, Bitcoin Cash simply works. There's also a whole plethora of amazing things a good digital cash can do that neither physical cash nor bank accounts can do. But for me, since the beginning, one of the big attractions was to see if people would take it from me as payment for the things I want and need to buy in person from cafes and shops. And 13 years later, landing in the Isle of Man since 2 months, that remains something I want to do, and is why I'm wanting to introduce islanders to Bitcoin Cash, to see if you folks, once you start understanding and having a go at using it, will want to have the ordinary use of Bitcoin Cash as money to be normal for you, between you, within the community. But before we get into that, the idea that you and I, Jeremy, had back in the day, and I would say of a large proportion of the people in the space, in Bitcoin back then, of using Bitcoin cryptocurrency as money, the vision of thousands or millions of people making day-to-day transactions with it, didn't come to be, at least in these last 12 years or so since I was involved. Something like, but we're not going to go into that now. So maybe, Jeremy, for those who want to look into maybe why that didn't happen, what would you recommend?
Yes, well, of course, like you say, Bitcoin has now been around for 17 years, since 2009, and you and I have been involved for well over a decade at this point, and perhaps our early plans didn't come to fruition either as fast or as directly as we maybe envisioned, and that is its own grand story arc. So for people who are interested in digging into that, of course, all the Bitcoin Cash podcast resources have information scattered about all over the place, but we specifically have episode 85, which you can go and listen to perhaps after you finish listening to this episode, which is where I dig into with Jet the history of how things went wrong along the way, what was working, what wasn't, the basic background of Bitcoin and some other similar fundamentals. So that will really help you get up to speed with what's the podcast about, what's Bitcoin Cash about, and a lot of the information that will help you make sense of what Gareth is talking about here from a more broader perspective, rather than just focused on this specific adoption initiative. So maybe check that out if you're curious to learn more. But that's outside the scope of what we're doing today. We're on a mission today, so we're just going to stick to that.
Yeah. And whatever the reason that you can find out about, the Bitcoin most people know today, BTC, is now seen as digital gold, a store of value. And honestly, the whole crypto space, including Bitcoin Cash, is mostly used for speculation right now. Whether we might want it to be or aspire for it to be different, crypto turned into one gigantic zero-sum game casino. And of course, as with traditional casino circuits, where there's big money, gambling, comes grift and fraud. So if that's your impression of crypto, of what you know of it, gambling, grifts, speculation, you're not far wrong. But that's not what it was created for, which brings us to Bitcoin Cash. Because the Bitcoin Cash community has kept that original ethos, has kept that guiding light, that compass north of peer-to-peer electronic cash for the world. Basically money. But money that we control, or to a certain extent that none of us controls. The dedication, the intent, and all the work that has gone into improving and building on Bitcoin Cash over the years has all been with that in mind. Cryptocurrency had and still has a massive value proposition for society, the potential to improve the lives of millions, if not billions. And although I am biased, out of all of the thousands of cryptos that are out there today, I see BCH, Bitcoin Cash, as having by far the best chance of being the one to deliver on that promise. Jeremy?
Yeah, well, I totally agree. I mean, we're on the same page, and that's really the ethos of the Bitcoin Cash community, is that it is a cash. It's called a cryptocurrency for a reason, right? A currency has to flow. That's where the word comes from, like an electric or an aquatic current, right? So it needs people to be both receiving it, which they are ideally earning, as you do with any other currency, British pounds or euros or anything. People earn it and then they spend it. And that's the whole point of a cryptocurrency. But for a variety of reasons, which is, more covered in other materials on the podcast, people have become heavily diverted from that. And they see cryptocurrency as less of a currency and more of an asset, as something that they can hold like gold reserves or maybe like their stock portfolio or something like that. But even though that is an element to it, it's true that you can invest in cryptocurrency, you can buy and hold it for the long term, you could consider it maybe part of your retirement savings or part of your financial, maneuverings in different elements. That's not the primary element that it is meant for. Of course, people have got on the wrong track, so it's part of the mission of the Bitcoin Cash community to try and help educate people to bring it back to those core principles of sovereignty and transactability, which comes from people taking responsibility for themselves, that they feel they do want to have an alternative currency, whether it's just for a time of crisis or whether it's a daily usage option for them, doesn't matter. But to have that kind of organic, grassroots, community-driven alternative, people need to take responsibility for looking after their own money and not outsource things to banks or to other financial institutions that maybe once started with good intentions but slowly erode into having their own separate interests, which are often at odds with their customers or clients. So the key phrase that the Bitcoin Cash community always says, which has been a big part of Bitcoin history, is from Andreas Antonopoulos in 2013, which is not your keys, not your coins. And we'll go into more detail about that as well. But just we're going to return to it several times, not your keys, not your coins, and we'll explain what that means shortly. So, Gareth?
I'm just getting a message through from Jet that the purely peer drop hasn't happened for some reason. So I'll come back to that in a minute. But I want to keep the thread here, because what we're talking about here is quite important. Because, how most people keep crypto and how most crypto is kept these days is in accounts, even financial instruments like ETFs. And a few days ago, someone I was talking to, as a first assumption, believed the first thing he would need to do to accept BCH is to set up an account. But it's not the case. You just need a BCH wallet app. And there are many to choose from. You could even access the same wallet from multiple apps. It's your money. It's not tied to any one app or any one service. So when you want to receive Bitcoin Cash from someone, they just need an address your wallet app creates for you, and they can send you BCH directly over the Bitcoin Cash network between sender and receiver. No accounts, no banks or companies, just simply me to you, you to me. That's what the peer-to-peer in P2P cash means. So as it happens, well, it's no coincidence, given Jeremy is one of the most prolific and active advocates of Bitcoin Cash with so many Bitcoin Cash related projects. One of the easiest wallets to get started with is one Jeremy is co-founder of, Selene Wallet. If we have time at the end, we'll do a screen share, but I kind of think we've eaten into that time already and walk through the setting up. But it's straightforward enough. You shouldn't need it. But for now, Jeremy, would you give those new to this a rundown of what someone needs to do to start using Selene Wallet?
Yes. So Selene Wallet is an open source, non-custodial BCH wallet app. So what that means is that it's a piece of software. It's just an app on your phone, similar, although different in some important ways to you might be familiar with your online banking app. That's kind of the idea. But in our case, it's open source. We publish the full source code online so that anybody can review it for security errors and make sure there's no way for us to be in control of your money, that you truly are in control of your money. And it's non-custodial. So like Gareth says, it's not an account. There's no registration or sign up. We don't hold any information about you. You can think of it more as like a web browser. When you want to go on the internet, you go to a web browser, and that lets you access any kind of web pages you want, right? And that same web browser can be used to go to any different site, and you can switch to another web browser and still use all the same websites that you were using before. It's the same thing with Bitcoin Cash and wallets. So Selene is one wallet, but there are other wallets like Paytaca or like Cash and Eyes, which you can access the same tools and services just like you do with Selene. So you're not locked into being part of the Selene, ecosystem in any way. So to use it, all you need to do is go on the Google Play Store or the iOS App Store and look for search Selene wallet, Selene wallet. You'll see it's got this nice logo here with the moon and the green Bitcoin Cash B, and download it. It's a very small app, very quick to download, and of course it's completely free. And then as soon as you load it up and open it, you'll notice that you land on a screen which looks like this, and the biggest thing there is the QR code to receive funds. So if you're trying to transact BCH with someone else, they will be able to scan your phone screen using the scan button at the bottom center, and then it will register that address, that account, not account. It will register that address, and you can just instantly send money to it straight away. There's no sign up. You don't have to put in any personally identifying information, nothing. You're straight onto the network as soon as you open that homepage. Now, if you want to transact with somebody who you're not standing right next to, you can also do it online, of course, by which you can send them a screenshot of that QR code, and you can hide your balance using the little eye icon in the top left if you don't want them to know how much Bitcoin Cash you have. Or you can send them a string of characters. You can send them this address just below in characters, numbers, and letters, and you just tap that and it will copy it onto your clipboard, and you could send it to somebody on WhatsApp or Telegram or any other messaging app, Instagram, whatever you want. And then they will be able to copy that and press the send button in their app, and they will be able to send directly to transactions on BCH. Essentially instant. They cost almost nothing, just fractions of a penny, so little that you won't even notice it. And that's the basics, really, of sending and receiving. We also have Selene available in your web browser, so you don't even need to download an app. You can just go to app.selene.cash in your web browser, and it'll load up a fresh wallet for you right there, so you can even try it out and have a bit of a look around without downloading the app first, if that makes you more comfortable. And the only main thing you need to know is to write down your seed phrase, which is we will be covering with the whole not your keys, not your coins. So in Selene, if you go into settings, and then you can choose wallet at the top, and then there's a little info panel, and you can find your keys. So the key is that it's 12 words in English, which you need to save as a backup. Because since you did not have an account, you didn't register, you didn't sign up anywhere, you need a way to recover your funds if your phone gets lost or stolen or it goes missing somehow. And that's what the seed phrase is. As long as you have the seed phrase, you will be able to recover your money on Selene wallet, on another device, or in any other Bitcoin Cash wallet. But it's absolutely critical that you save those 12 words in the exact order that they're written somewhere physical and not digital, because humans are much better at protecting physical information than they are digital information. You know, people get hacked and scammed all the time using online services, and especially when it's new technology. So get a piece of paper and write down those 12 words that are written there and store it wherever you store other important physical information. Like people usually have a place for their passport or their wills or other, you know, their university degrees or other important physical documents. So once you've written down the words and put them there, you're backed up and you're safe. And if you ever lose your phone or have any other problem, you will be able to recover the money with those words. But it's also critical that you do not tell anybody else those words, because if you do, they can load it up into an app themselves and take your money. Like I said, there's no other, you know, registration or sign-in details. So just be very careful not to tell anybody else those words and keep them safe. That's the main thing.
Yeah, and that it's an interesting one, because with bank apps and with everything else, there's always someone to turn to, and usually there's someone to say, oh, even sometimes if you've been defrauded, the bank will cover it. But this is decentralized. There isn't anyone to go running to. It's not a bank. There's no customer service. That's the trade-off for the freedom. But what there is a wallet producer, and they're very supportive generally, and there's immense community support too. So there are many mistakes that can be made, and you'll end up getting a lot of help to resolve it.
You had maybe an update there for us with the Purely Peer, right?
Yep, it just said, awesome, it's done, finally.
Wow.
So we had a technical hitch there somehow, but that seems to be there now live, with apologies to the people on the island. I think, Steve, no, Savage Rebel was saying, I was looking forward to spending the afternoon hunting for drops. So you can go now.
Yeah.
And it seems to have stopped raining as well, although there's not much daylight left, if we can see from the cam. I think we've covered the wallet and how important the seeds are.
Yes, it's just really key that everybody back up their seed phrase, because like Gareth said, you're not, on your own. There is a whole community full of resources and passionate supporters and people to help you out and educate you. But the only fly in the ointment is that if you lose your seed phrase, nobody can help you. There's no suddenly digging it up out of the vault or emergency backup option. You just need to be responsible for those 12 words. If you have those 12 words, don't tell anybody, but if you come and seek help, people will be able to help you get your money back. But if you've lost the seed words, unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it. So that is just the one piece of self-responsibility people have to take to open up a whole world of Bitcoin Cash related freedom. So that's it. And then next up, we have, I believe, some interviews that you've done, right, Gareth?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for that, for summarizing that, Jeremy. Okay. So next we have 2 interviews I recorded over the past few days, both with people who know a lot about helping and encouraging communities to start using Bitcoin Cash on the ground as money. So we'll go first to my conversation with Joemar Taganna, CEO of Paytaca. Here's how the conversation went. Thank you for joining me, Joemar. You're behind Paytaca Wallet, which is being used for everything from street purchases to online food delivery services in the Philippines. You're helping people think of the BCH in their wallets as something to use, not just to speculate on. So let me start with the personal side. What drives you to invest your time, money, everything so much in this work? And then what do you hear from merchants and customers? Why are they choosing BCH, Bitcoin Cash, over traditional payment methods?
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Gareth, for having me in this interview. So what drives me? So the first question. The short answer is that I believe in the technology, the potential of Bitcoin. Originally, when I read the white paper, Bitcoin Cash now, to effect positive change in society. So when I first read the white paper and understood how it works, it was like a light bulb moment. Like this is something revolutionary. I said to myself. And I believe that I can do a lot of things to either to build on top of this technology in order to make things better for everyone. And regarding the other part is about, remind me, it was about the
what are you hearing from merchants and customers? Why are they choosing Bitcoin Cash over traditional payment methods?
Mm-hmm. So at least based on our experience, the users, especially the merchants that we onboarded, first they would not have known about Bitcoin Cash if we didn't introduce it to them. So the main thing why they'd like to try is because we asked them to try. and the big factor there is trust. They trust that we are legit, that we are not a bunch of scammers. Because unfortunately, in this part of the world, I don't know if it's the same case where you are, there's been a lot of scams being peddled in the name of cryptocurrency.
Sure. I think everywhere.
There's a lot of victims, and we have met like people who even asked us to return their money.
Okay.
Like, oh, we are not those scammers. So so it's the main motivation that people try Bitcoin Cash or Paytaca. It's really because of the reputation. So many of our initial merchants here are either friends or friends of friends. And then when they experience already, it's like word of mouth from then on, from that point. So, um, of course, it's trust is one thing, and the other is the experience. It's like it's a breeze, right? Payment is painless. It's and also it's not costly for the merchant. So they see value. So after the initial onboarding, it's then the time that they see the value of paying with Bitcoin Cash. It's just frictionless. It's cheap. It's easy.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. So a concern that's often raised when it comes to cryptocurrency as money is price volatility, the flip side of speculation. So what's your experience of how customers and merchants actually deal with this fluctuation risk? Does it put them off, or have you found it's less of an issue in practice than people expect it to be?
Yeah, it can be. We found out that it's more of a concern for users, for those who pay in Bitcoin Cash. Because imagine that you're a new user and we convinced you to put some amount, let's say 1,000 pesos worth of Bitcoin Cash in the wallet, because there are some merchants where you would like to buy something with that. But after a few minutes, your 1,000 peso worth of Bitcoin Cash is now like 900 pesos. So it's more painful on the side of the customer. For merchants, however, before they get onboarded, we explain to them the volatility, and considering the like it represents a very small portion of their sales. Right. Most of them even consider this like savings. Like, and of course we condition them as well that in the beginning it's not like every day there's somebody going to spend with Bitcoin Cash. It's going to be a slow start. So for them this is not a main source of revenue. They consider it a savings, so they don't really. It doesn't really matter much if it fluctuates in the short term. In fact, probably we were just lucky that in the last 1 year or so, Bitcoin Cash has gone up in price, right?
Yeah.
So they were pleasantly surprised that their sales in Bitcoin Cash is now like 30-40% more in value. So yeah, it's the volatility is more painful for the customer side. The merchants can tolerate it more, at least in our experience.
That's very interesting, because I think it's often assumed that customers are already, or they're already saving, they're already accumulating crypto, and they like the speculation. And it's that the friction is on the merchant side. But it's very interesting to hear that the reverse is true, at least in your experience in the Philippines. That's really interesting. Thank you. So, okay, so as a wallet and point of sales developer, you're designing for both customers making purchases and merchants receiving payments. How do you balance making self-custody easy and attractive to use while helping people understand the serious responsibility of being their own bank?
Yeah, I admit it's. I believe when people start using Paytaca, they download the wallet, and then told that they need to keep the seed phrase private, it doesn't really sink in.
Yep.
In the beginning, it's like, okay, we'll do that. And then it only begins to matter if they have funds in the wallet.
Yes.
And so there have been instances where users lost access to the wallet, unfortunately.
Of course.
And we have to acknowledge the problem. It's really, I guess part of it is a technological problem. Like we don't have solutions right now to make self-custody easy. And I believe we can still make it even easier and safer. That's something like for us to discover what those solutions are. But yeah, it can be a problem. What we usually do is for the merchants that receive a lot of transactions per month, we visit them.
Right.
So I have my staff, my marketing team, visiting them, asking them if they still have access to their wallets.
Yeah.
Basically, just send that amounts to themselves.
Yes.
Just to make sure that they can still spend.
Yeah. I guess that's the flip side of them thinking of it. Oh, this is my savings. Is that they're then not using it, which is what we're trying to encourage, and therefore they're not familiarizing themselves with with spending and receiving and using it as active money. So yeah, it's a challenge, and it's one we need to. Well, you need to think of as developer. I need to think of as an advocate for circular economy, and that both, especially merchants, if they start accumulating reasonable amounts, need to make sure that they familiarize themselves with the concept and the processes of keeping things safe. This is one of the things. It's always been one of my big core messages. Please learn to do this properly. Learn to understand enough that you know how to keep your things safe. Okay, off of my my hobby horse. So yeah, getting back to the Isle of Man, because this interview and the live stream is dedicated to and is aimed at introducing these ideas. So on the Isle of Man, it has some interesting regulatory features. There's no capital gains tax, which is a big thing, and because that can be a friction for spenders in many jurisdictions. And my understanding is that the regulations like travel rule that apply to exchanges and payment providers don't apply to person or person to merchant payments, where both parties control their wallets. So how do you see this kind of regulatory environment affecting adoption? And what would you advise merchants here on the island who are considering accepting PCH?
So in that case, it's clear regulations are saying, and that's good. I think that's a good thing because businesses need to be assured that they're not doing something illegal.
Yeah.
Or it's not gonna cost them to accept payments. So I think that's very supportive for merchant adoption efforts in your area.
Yeah.
And what would you do to encourage the merchants? It's like what I've said earlier. It's many of these merchants will not know if we don't let them know. So there's a lot of value in making Bitcoin Cash visible.
Right.
Wherever. If you want to do merchant adoption, you have to make yourself visible. So in our case, what we do is we get involved in events that are public events. We participate in school events. So we are seen in schools.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, we are seen in the malls. So we participate, we sponsor events. You see banners of Paytaca, Bitcoin Cash. Everywhere we have our vehicle. We have a sticker.
Okay.
A huge, Uh, Me personally, I get invited to talk
Right.
in conferences, in events, even government organized events. I talk about
Okay.
blockchain, crypto payments in commerce. So yeah, visibility is very important. And then when they see you, it adds credibility. Like merchants will begin to think, oh, maybe it's a good idea. I want to try it. This seems to be a reputable, credible person, credible group. Then yeah, especially considering that the backdrop here of crypto, the image of crypto is not that positive in general.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Before we came promoting Bitcoin Cash, so yeah, visibility is very important.
Thank you. Thank you. So, personally, I still find it an immense joy every time I spend Bitcoin Cash, whether buying a service online or especially person to person, paying for something I value for something the seller will also value. So earning BCH is even better. Part of my Isle of Man circular economy, probably the main driver initiative, is to spread the joy. Well, actually, it's so that other people also get what this is about and participate. So, a final question: what would you say to someone on the island who's curious but hasn't taken their first step yet? What's the one thing you'd want them to know, to learn about, or to do this week to get involved? Maybe.
Oh, what would I say? It it's difficult to assess like how's the situation now there, because I would like to say try transacting, try paying in Bitcoin Cash, but the question is where. Like, are there places that accept BCH? That assuming that there are merchants that are already accepting Bitcoin Cash, then I'd invite them to just give it a try and see the difference, see the convenience, and also the freedom, the spark of joy that you feel, exactly as you described, as you mentioned in your question. It's the joy of using freedom money. Like, you are not part of the problem; you're part of the solution.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. That right now, as we're recording this, as far as I know, the only business accepting BCH is the guest house I'm staying at.
That's a start.
But this is, but we've got to start from somewhere, and this is
Exactly.
why I'm opening the center, and I'm going to be doing the rounds, talking to merchants, and in having it in the High Street in Peel, in Michael Street, will mean that people, whether merchants or people just interested, can just pop in anytime, and I'm more than happy always to talk about Bitcoin Cash. So before we wrap up, is there anything important we haven't covered that you'd like to mention? Anything you think people on the Isle of Man should know about using Bitcoin Cash as money?
It's more about the work of spreading adoption of Bitcoin Cash.
Okay.
About more of a message for you, because I know you said you're into this, or you're planning to like spread Bitcoin Cash adoption in your place. There's been a lot of skepticism about how spreading Bitcoin Cash adoption is going to affect the usage of Bitcoin Cash in general. So perhaps because the results of previous efforts were discouraging, that some efforts in other places, like onboarding hundreds, thousands of merchants, and then after at some point they just all dropped off.
Yeah.
So this made a lot of people like feel discouraged about pursuing this path
Yes.
to adoption. But my take on it is there's really like there are many ways you can do. So there's there are many paths we can take in order to promote adoption, but there's no escaping that this has to involve merchants in the real world. Like,
Yes.
we have to see actual transactions in the real world being done in Bitcoin Cash. And at the same time, it's true, we need to explore a lot of things that we haven't tried before. The failures of efforts before should not mean that we should not like explore this at all.
Sure.
So it's both social and like technological issues in there that we need to know what those issues are, and you really can't know if you don't immerse yourself in the work. And indeed, many of the issues we have, like many of the assumptions we had when we started, were not quite correct. And we only learned this when we went into the field and
feet on the ground, engaging with people, learning from experience, not just theorizing in our heads what's important, what's not important, listening to the people who are vaguely involved, or vaguely interested, or not even interested at all, and why. And then when they are onboarded, yeah, thank you. Yes, that is what I need to hear. And maybe, though the focus is for this episode is on for the people of the island, and the merchants and potential customers, users of Bitcoin Cash on the island, this also for the regular Bitcoin Cash podcast listeners who might be considering doing an initiative in their own communities. That's an important thing to have said. So thank you so much, Joemar, for
thank you
participating. I'm hoping this will be very valuable for the islanders, and maybe we'll catch up another time. I mean, you and I will catch up also on the use of maybe the Paytaca POS systems for the islanders. So we'll do that another time. But for now, thank you very much, and goodbye. So that was Joemar Taganna. Great to talk to him. And from the use of Bitcoin Cash on the ground in the Philippines, we're going to head straight over to Australia, to the conversation I had with Noel Lovisa. Noel, thank you for joining me. As the founder of Bitcoin Cash City in North Queensland, building a circular economy there, you're helping people think of the BCH in their wallets as something to use, not just to speculate on, building in real, on-the-ground adoption. Welcome, Noel.
Thank you, Gareth. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let me start with you personally. What is it about Bitcoin Cash, particularly for in-person purchases, that's kept you committed to this for so long?
As anybody who's used Sound Money, Bitcoin Cash, it's always never gets old that when you make a payment with Bitcoin Cash, it's reliable, it's very low cost, and very, very fast. So, the user experience when you make a payment is that speed makes it really extend that user experience beyond what even PayWave or other payment methods can achieve.
Great. And from this Townsville initiative, what feedback do you get from the people and businesses using BCH?
Well, it's kind of future-proofing those businesses, using Sound Money. There's a general flight to more sounder money, in economies that experiencing high levels of inflation. Typically, there's a movement. So here, we don't have an inflation problem in Australia, but it's kind of nice to have that option outside of the Australian dollar right now. So that's kind of one of the exciting aspects of these merchants. The other is, of course, they make more money. There's no bank fees. It's electronic cash. So merchants that are like in the hospitality sector where they're only making 10 or 15% margins. A 3% bank fee, that's gobbling up 30% of their margins potentially. So that aspect is not to be trifled with. Good user experience and just more efficient money, really.
Great. A concern that's often raised when it comes to cryptocurrency as money is price volatility, the flip side of speculation. What's your experience of how customers and merchants actually deal with this fluctuation risk? Is it really an issue in practice?
Yeah, look, that's a really important question, and the answer is actually a little bit unexpected. We have many, hundreds of merchants in the city, and the general feeling in the community even is that they're not being onboarded fast enough because they're afraid of volatility or the like. In my experience, these merchants they don't have any problem with volatility. It's when they're being onboarded, it's more that it's the fear of the unknown, and oftentimes the volatility is kind of being bolted, lumped in with that. But when these merchants get going, the volatility is certainly not a problem. One example is that one of the merchants came to me, and when I mentioned the idea of volatility, is it a problem for him? He said, "Look, I sell a $5 coffee for Bitcoin Cash, and it cost me $3 to create that coffee. So he's got a 40% margin where he's basically buying $5 worth of Bitcoin Cash for $3. And that 40% margin gives him enormous latitude. Like there's no pressure to offload that Bitcoin Cash. And he can take his time and the price can drop 40% before he's upside down on that transaction. So the merchants have many mechanisms at their disposal to deal with volatility, and their main focus is just using Bitcoin Cash as a medium of exchange. So volatility only comes into it when you're an investor. So these merchants make the same amount of money, whatever the price. So that leads to a very interesting outcome. When the price does, drop, let's say, we don't lose any merchants. They're still making the same amount of money. Okay. Whereas, coins that are more just store of value, you've got margin calls, you've got investors that are being, harvested. You're culling those investors. We survive. The price could collapse to practically zero, and the economy still runs.
Great. Well, I'm looking at the map behind you, and the massive merchants that you have accepting Bitcoin Cash in Townsville. Many places have tried to kickstart on the ground cryptocurrency adoption, including here on the Isle of Man. But most have floundered after the initial enthusiasm. Clearly, there's a nurturing period required. But are you seeing signs of a tipping point in Townsville where it starts to gain momentum of its own?
Yeah, look, there's definitely that aspect. The first merchant that you onboard, I can remember the first merchant that I onboarded, the first merchant is always the most difficult. And the good news is the first merchants can typically be like low-hanging fruit, like their relations or friends and family, or extended family. So getting those first few on board is tough, but it's also they're much easier from the aspect that you can be trusted because you're known to them already, rather than a cold call, for example. Yeah. The benefits really start making your life onboarding merchants a lot easier when you do have, a bunch of merchants that you can show. And I often use that map as a tool. I'll go into a merchant and I'll say, look, do you accept Bitcoin Cash yet? and they might say no, or what's that, and I'll pull out the map and I say, look, it's pretty popular around town, and basically everybody, except you, as a bit of a joke. Obviously, that's not, we only have a small portion of our merchants that are accepting Bitcoin Cash, but certainly that density of merchants, and when they see the cars driving around and stickers on their neighbors, especially if there's a merchant like next door that's accepting it, they can go and see it for themselves. So the tipping point looks to be that so long as you get enough, pips on your map, it certainly does seem to be a lot easier, beyond that point. If you want to talk about tipping at an economy level, well, it's probably a discussion for another day. I'd love to talk about that too, but yeah.
Excellent. Well, the Bitcoin Cash community, as you well know, has stuck to the founding principles of Bitcoin, using it as money to use, not just to save in. So another principle which has gotten lost in the era of the big crypto casino is self-custody, being directly in control of your own funds. Self-custody is central to Bitcoin's original vision, but often gets lost today. Why is this principle important to you, Noel?
No, look, that goes to the heart of the Bitcoin revolution. Bitcoin Cash inherited the Bitcoin mission of becoming sound money for the world. So, and it's an electronic cash. Now, all the users here are familiar with the Australian dollar and paying for goods and services with the Australian dollar, i.e., using cash. And there are certain responsibilities when you're carrying cash. You don't want to leave your wallet lying around, etc. So just like any time you're using cash, there are responsibilities that you need to look out for, and that goes even more so for Bitcoin Cash. It's electronic cash. There is no intermediary. It's me to the merchant, and it's way more secure because of the elliptic curve cryptography and the way the system is structured compared to cash. So long as when you onboard a person or a merchant, you just follow some simple rules. Look, here's a wallet that's reputable, that I stand by. It's made by this guy. He now lives in London. He's an Australian. And, once they got the wallet, I'm certain, look, your coins aren't actually stored in the wallet. They're actually stored in the blockchain. The wallet only allows you to spend them. So it's really, really important for you to back up your wallet. And I usually regale them with a story where I paid a contractor $3,000 to do a job, and the next day he was driving down the main street of Bali on a moped, and his iPhone popped out of his back pocket, never to be seen again. And today, that $3,000, well, it's probably $30,000, is still on the blockchain. It'll be there forever. So that's a really good story to impart the idea that it's your responsibility. You're your own bank now, and there's a couple of simple things. Storing your private key, your keywords in a safe place, and even if you're into investing, giving them the heads up on paper wallets, which are just fabulous. You can trust paper wallets; they're really great. Yeah. So it's your responsibility. Like at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Yeah. So from your experience working with merchants in Townsville, what's the biggest obstacles they face with self-custody, and how do you help them address it?
Self-custody. The biggest obstacles, I would here we kind of make sure that every merchant isn't using like a payment provider. They're just using a wallet, or they're using a cash register app. So we try to have merchants avoid using payment processors. Payment processors are incentivized to use 100 different cryptos that nobody ever uses except Bitcoin Cash. So by just cutting to the chase, we're just not going there. But to extend that further, that extends to things like exchanges. We don't want merchants here using exchanges because they're incentivized in the same way. I would much prefer to have a circular economy and have locals be underwriting or purchasing coins off a merchant. So self-custody is very important, and it's more so important here because we try to avoid things like payment providers and exchanges, and we've been very good at it. I do not know of a single merchant in the Bitcoin Cash City that uses a payment processor for processing their Bitcoin Cash.
That's impressive. You mentioned the underwriting there, so I'm guessing that's getting back to the volatility thing. What's that process you're talking about there?
Well, in avoiding exchanges, underwriting is a really powerful tool that we use here, and underwriting takes many forms. The most famous one, I think, is via Donna Kilpatrick, who she uses her retirement funds to buy the Bitcoin Cash off her own business, and that's just inspired. Instead of going to an exchange and buying Bitcoin Cash with those funds, she's buying it off her own business. Now, when she's buying it off her own business, if she's selling a $5 coffee, at cost, that cost at $3, she's essentially accumulating Bitcoin Cash slowly, admittedly, but she's with her margin. It's really quite. So she's underwriting her own business, and that idea has really taken off across town. There's probably 10% of all merchants here who are owned. The business owners are using their retirement funds to accumulate a position in Bitcoin Cash, and they're doing it by via underwriting their own businesses. In addition to that, there are some businesses that look, this is all too complex for me. And I'll offer an underwriting service. It's cheaper for me to buy Bitcoin Cash off, a business here than it is to buy it off an exchange and pay an exchange fee and an exchange spread. So I personally underwrite a couple of merchants here in that, and it's really easy because with the tablet, with the the cash register app, I can just have the cash register app pointing to me. So I'll see the dollars hit my wallet directly that somebody makes a sale, and then I just have to ensure that I put those deposits directly into that business.
Sorry, not the dollars. You mean you see the Bitcoin Cash hit your?
Yeah. So I'll see the Bitcoin Cash hit my. I can see the cash register is pointing to my wallet, not the business owner's wallet.
Yes.
So it actually, as soon as somebody makes a payment and buys a coffee, boom, I've got that Bitcoin Cash.
Right.
Yes. And we've got a tool. Yeah. So we've got a little tool that monitors those addresses, and it'll notify me, and I'll make that payment. And there are various ones in between where a car yard didn't want to, make a sale of a car. You're talking $100,000 worth of Bitcoin Cash. So they were a little bit concerned when they were adopting and underwriting them. I get a big investor to underwrite them that agreed to buy all that Bitcoin Cash off them. So it really helps circulation. It keeps the coins in the city, and a very powerful tool, specifically, especially when considering that your retirement funds can be buying that Bitcoin Cash off your business. But we've got the owners buying it off their businesses and other business people buying it off other businesses. And, it's just a really powerful mechanism to keep those coins local and manage the risk here.
Great. So getting back to just the transactions themselves, for me, every Bitcoin Cash transaction still brings genuine satisfaction. There's something special about exchanging value directly with another person who appreciates what you're offering them. And when you can earn BCH for your work or products, that completes the circle. That's what I'm wanting to see, whether this is something the Isle of Man people and businesses will embrace. So if you were speaking directly to a Manx business owner or resident who's intrigued but hesitant maybe, what is the first small step you'd encourage them to take, apart, of course, from going out and picking up one of the purely peer cash drops today?
Yeah, no, that's a great mechanism too. Yeah. Look, when you're selling a product, if you can get the product in the customer's hands, the rule is that they're half sold already if they're actually touching and feeling it. So a really powerful capability that Bitcoin Cash has that, like, Bitcoin is lost, is, all right, getting you to download a wallet and tipping you a small amount of coffee. That's just impractical now with Bitcoin, but it's so powerful. Every person that has used Bitcoin Cash can remember the first time they received 5 cents into their wallet. In my case, it was Gavin and Dressen's faucet, where I could just send my public address and it would depart. It was such a thrill using that Shillback wallet that generated like a cash drop sound, and I had the coin drop when this 5 cents turned up. Which today I'd hate to think how many of those that many Bitcoin is worth today. But that getting it into the recipient's hands, getting him to download the wallet and tipping them in. And I've timed it. I can get you from not knowing anything about Bitcoin Cash to going to the App Store, downloading, like in the example I'm giving, it's the Selene wallet, and paying you a tip cleared on your phone is 45 seconds. I can do that in 45 seconds. That's it's simple and effective, that's a very powerful aspect. And normally, if I'm in the process of onboarding a merchant, I will go on to say that now what you have right there is nothing more sophisticated than any of these other merchants are using across town.
Right. Yeah.
And it just the whole thing is just so simple.
That's simple.
So look, that's really powerful. I can't, and nobody can follow us down here because our fees are like less than a penny. It's incredible. It's such a powerful tool. It's just getting that person to download the wallet and tipping them up.
You say about the sub-minute experience. Just a few days ago, Terry's Taters here in Douglas, Rachel there. That's what I did. A little tip, and within a minute, and she was like, "Oh wow, this is that easy." And
it is shocking. They are surprised.
Yeah,
and it is so simple.
Yeah,
and I like the way that like Selene actually has that like the recipient QR code on its homepage. Like, it's just so fast. And one other comment I'll typically make there is when I make send the tip and it clears, and I said, you could be in Canada and it'd be that fast. When we're here in Australia, so you could use the same kind of. You could be in Australia when you're in the Isle of Man, and it'll be that fast. Sure. It is. It's and just on that point before I let you go ahead. That's a great trick that Roger Veer. When we do a meetup here, and we get him on as a guest in the past, he's gotten a new user to hold up with their wallet to the camera, and he will buy them a beer from St. Kitts.
Right, yes.
It's just amazing. It's just mind blowing. It is a very powerful tool that you've got.
Sure. So before we wrap up, is there anything important we haven't covered that you'd like to mention? Anything you think the people on the Isle of Man should know about using Bitcoin Cash as money?
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's. I think probably the most important is that Bitcoin Cash doesn't have any central authority, no government, no company, no individual that controls it. It's you and I, the people that control it. And that's a huge, huge benefit, right? But there is also, huge responsibilities. It's now our responsibility to market it, for example. There's no marketing budget. If I'm going to put these billboards out there, that's, it's just me doing a community service. It's not me drawing on funds from the community somewhere. So it's important to and I think it's a good thing that you impart the idea that that responsibility for marketing it is as part of the deal, and it's an important part. We got to use it, or
it rests
we
with the
lose it.
community. Yeah, fabulous. Oh man, thank you so much, Noel, for your thoughts on this. I'm hoping that'll really give some food for thought to people here. Thank you.
Thanks, Gareth. No, it was an absolute honor. I love talking about this stuff. Thank you, sir.
I just wanted to say thanks again to my two guests there on the two pre-recorded interviews with Joemar Taganna of Paytaca and Noel Lovisa of Bitcoin Cash City. And you can find them on those on the screen now. I'd recommend anyone keep in touch with both of them on their socials because, they're powerhouses, both of them. So I hope people listening in the Isle of Man... Oh, actually, what I will say is that the first purely peer drop has been collected. So congratulations to whoever took the first one. It's great that we know at least someone has been looking to pick up one or two of these. So brilliant there. Whether live or listening later, I've got a sense of how Bitcoin Cash can serve local communities. In a way, it could be thought of like the old LETS communities, the LETS, the money from the 70s and 80s, because it does serve the purpose of having money circulate within and between people and businesses in the community. But it also has the advantage of being digital and being global, meaning you can send it to receive it from relatives and friends anywhere in the world, or use it to order goods and services online, as Satoshi initially envisioned. Additionally to all that, there are some phenomenally powerful things that are beginning to become accessible in terms of what BCH can do that neither physical cash nor bank money can do. It really is an eye-opener. Things like cash tokens and contracts, and it's a whole other world and would be a whole other episode. So, in fact, if you look, I'll use this as a plug for the normal Bitcoin Cash podcast, because Jeremy does interviews with people who are behind some of these really interesting projects. So, I'd highly recommend the back catalogue, of which there are very many, and to be following the Bitcoin Cash podcast going forward as well. But as Noel says, just getting back to the basics, the fundamental and most powerful use case for cryptocurrency is as peer-to-peer digital cash. And Bitcoin Cash, as far as I'm concerned, is simply perfect for that. So before we wind up, would you, Jeremy, like to go through some of the resources listeners could go to explore further beyond the Bitcoin Cash podcasts?
Yes, absolutely. So, of course, we have the Bitcoin Cash podcast and loads of information there for everybody to check out, with the whole history, wallets, FAQs, basically everything you need. But of course, you might want to do some further research. So we also have a recommended page that you can look up, which links to lots of other information and sources from the Bitcoin Cash community, including the social media. So you can check out Telegram groups, you can check out prominent Twitter accounts, and you can follow the community as a whole. There's also other great sites like minisatoshi.cash, bch.education, whybitcoincash.com, and bitcoiniscash.org that we recommend you check out as well, and they will help you get linked into everything that's going on in the community. So they're definitely some good starting points, and then you'll discover more from there. Great. And additionally, for the islanders, now that I've just since yesterday got the keys to the shop on Michael Street, I won't be here all the time to start with, but whenever I'm here, whenever it's open, do please feel free to call in for a cuppa. No kettle yet, but I'll get there.
As you may have guessed from today, it's something I'm always happy to talk about at great length. So your challenge might be to get out of the door. To close, Jeremy and Jet, do you have anything further you'd like to say to our listeners on the Isle of Man? First, Jet, maybe.
I was not prepared to go first.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I guess if someone's just getting involved in Bitcoin Cash now, I think we kind of hinted to it at the very start. The thing that I didn't realize, it's coming up for me that I've been into Bitcoin for almost a solid decade now. And the impact that it's had on my life is not the impact that you see people online talking about. You are not going to get rich quick. Well, maybe, but it's not that likely. So I think the big thing is like, don't go into this going like, oh, I'm going to be filthy rich. Maybe if everything works out. But you're part of everything working out. You have to make sure that you actually use it. You have to also take the time to explain things to people when they ask you questions. Like, if you're the person that knows the most about it, it's kind of on you. I think Garrett is being doing the perfect example of that. He's the one on the island that likely knows the most about it. It's now he's taking it upon himself to onboard others. And I think the more people that we have doing that, the better it works out for all of us. In the freedom money aspect. And also the more likely you are to be filthy rich. So, we are all Satoshi. We're all putting our part in. Have some patience. I think that's it for me.
Excellent. Thank you, Jet. And Jeremy, anything for the people of the Isle of Man and also for your regular visitors? I'll just say before... I'll thank you for. I've hogged the vast majority of the airtime here, and I knew I was going to, and you've been very gracious about it. So, feel free to expand on whatever you would like to. It's your show after all.
Well, there's hundreds of episodes of me talking about BCH, so there's certainly no shortage of that, and I always love elevating other community members into the public visibility. That's one of the reasons that I started this channel, was that cryptocurrency is something that people often find very confusing or strange. It's technology, it's new, it changes very fast. A lot of people get themselves way too deep into the financial aspect and they're not prepared for exactly what that means. It's volatile. There's just so many different elements that are confusing to people. So I created the channel to have somewhere reliable that people could get real information about Bitcoin Cash and to build a true community, because that's what it's about. It really is not a joke or a slogan or a marketing thing when we say that it is genuinely a grassroots community. Everything in Bitcoin Cash that happens, all the software that you use, all the community discussion channels, things like this podcast, things like Gareth's initiative on the Isle of Man, it all is just people who are very passionate about bringing economic freedom and the ability to choose, the ability to have an alternative to the banking system available to them, one which doesn't exploit them, which isn't siphoning off huge amounts of money never to be seen again. And in many ways, we live in a world, especially in the modern era, which is very corrupt and very controlled. And Bitcoin Cash is one of the small little areas of resistance where people can find an alternative. So it does have a very high-minded ideal and a very noble purpose, but at the same time, it is an organic grassroots community. So you don't need to be scared or frightened of it. Just go and have a cup of tea with Gareth and have a chat to him about it. He's not going to push you into anything you're not interested in getting involved in. He's just there to help give you some education and some insight. So if it's something you're interested in, just see if you like it. It's literally as simple as just talking about it. And from there, maybe you try it out a little bit. and maybe it's useful for you. And if it's not, that's okay. Nobody's going to be upset or blaming you. It's just one option that's there for you, and everybody comes to it in their own time. That's also something that 13 years in Bitcoin has taught me. You know, somebody is ready when they're ready, and different people have problems with inflation or sending money to their friends or family overseas, or with some other barrier that they discover in the financial system, having their bank account shut down unfairly. All kinds of reasons bring people to Bitcoin Cash, but everybody becomes united on one mission. So welcome to the Bitcoin Cash community. I'm sure you're going to love it.
Excellent. Thank you. Very, very nicely said, both of you. Thank you. Jeremy, do you want to go straight on to acknowledging the supporters of the Bitcoin Cash podcast that are making this all possible?
Yeah, well, exactly. In that vein, we just have a list of some of our supporters that donated to the show. Anybody who enjoyed this broadcast, of course, can, like we said, with Selene Wallet, you can just use your Selene and just scan the QR code we have on the screen and send us directly some BCH. It helps to keep everything running. So thank you very much to Majamalu. This is a marathon. Molecular, the show we love. Cash Dragon. Bastion.com, fair and decentralized Twitter, at Cash Stamps, BCH for the win, DGN and FurQ, sick rap anthem, #1 token coming at ya, P2P Cash, smash the state, 40% APY, https://nwb.cash, Jonald, best podcast ever, Brian Kanachi, and Anonymous. We have our patrons, Ricky, Carl, and HP, and our sponsors, General Protocols. Check out BCHbull.com. So thank you to everybody who has donated and contributed in that regard. Of course, you can go to bitcoincashpodcast.com for more information. And like we said before, if you're new to the show, listen to episode 85. And thank you very much to Gareth for running this episode of the show. I've really enjoyed it. It's been fun to be hands off for a change.
Excellent. Before we close, though, I am going to go again. We've had one. Yep, we've had one out of 65. So there are 64 cash drops still on the island. I mean, I'm delighted, and congratulations to. Yeah, I can see on here it was Savage Rebel who's been chatting in the Purely Peer Telegram group. So congratulations. For picking that first one. So maybe, Jet, if you wouldn't mind finding the Purely Peer slide for anyone who wasn't here at the beginning, just as a reminder of how you can participate in that, because there's still plenty. There's almost a whole Bitcoin Cash out there. So you just need to scan, download, and because it's a self-custodial wallet, so we didn't mention this at the beginning. Also, as soon as you start getting any Bitcoin Cash on there, make sure you go and you take down your seed words and put them somewhere safe. Because, it's a peer-to-peer wallet as everyone else. So all that remains, I think, for me to thank first Jeremy and Jet, both of you, really, for offering this episode as a prize in the BLISS conference last year. I'm so happy I won it, and that in winning it, that you both enabled me to do this Bitcoin Cash introduction for the people of the Isle of Man. I'll also thank the regular Bitcoin Cash listeners, Bitcoin Cash podcast listeners, for indulging me in this frankly self-indulgent, in large part, monologue of what I wanted to talk about. So I hope you found enough in it for you, even if a lot of it was basic introductory stuff. And finally, I'll thank the people of the Isle of Man who have so far welcomed me so warmly since landing here in December, coming in on that morning ferry. People on the island I've known from decades ago, from the Manx music and dancing scene, and those who may be listening whom I have yet to meet and hope to meet soon. So thank you and goodbye from beautiful Peel, the Isle of Man.